McQuestion, talking about things that matter with people who care. Production of McQuestion is made possible in part by individual viewers, supporters of the Foundation for Responsible Television, CF Accountants and Consultants, adding value to clients throughout the region, the Hatton W. Sumner's Foundation for the Study and Teaching of the Science of Self-Government, the University of Texas at Dallas, creating the future, Sundown Ranch, one sundown at a time.
You know, if you're a technology person, you'll love this program. And if you're not, well, you need to watch so that you will become a technology person, because we may scare you into it. The questions on the table for this program are how the cloud, analytics, social media, and mobility are changing the world of business and the models that we've been accustomed to. Let's meet our experts who are involved every day in the future and how it will affect you. First on my left is Monty Ford. He's a former Chief Information Officer at American Airlines who now serves on the board of Akamai Technologies. Monty, welcome to town.
Thank you, Dennis.
Sitting next to you is Bill Roboto. He's a partner in the Deloitte & Touche's Boston office, a Big Four accounting firm. So, Bill, welcome to Texas.
Pleased to be here.
And finally, next to you is Barry Liebert. He's chairman and founder of Open Matters. Barry, welcome.
Great to have you.
So what is all this change we're talking about? I mean, I hear all this stuff, I read all the things you sent me, and I don't think I understand it all, but I know it's a big deal. What is it?
So basically, when you think about it, the last 10 years you've seen some major new technologies emerge. The simplest one to think about is Facebook, right? It's fundamentally altered who we communicate with, how we communicate, how we keep track of our children's lives, right? I find out the fact that my children are in Norway just by checking Facebook versus talking to my friends.
Well, that is one big change without a doubt, but it's not just, I suspect it's not just that company. It's something about that company. What is it about that company that's different from, let's say, someone who's manufacturing Acme bricks out here?
Absolutely. So what they thought about is that the internet is basically the basis for foundation for manufacturing information versus someone who came along, let's call it, Ford, and thought he was going to manufacture something called a car using industrial facilities. Now they're using the internet to manufacture information for all of us to share. So very different platforms for creating value. And you're seeing all that in lots of different industries, not just in the social industries.
Yeah, exactly. And when you consult with companies, and Bill, when you consult with companies, and they're asking you what you see out there, what could improve what they're doing, or even worse, what could be the thing that absolutely kills their whole category of business, what are you telling them?
Well, in fact, Dennis, you said it right in the beginning, which is sometimes this is scary because there's revolutions that have occurred over time. And every time there's a new revolution, new thinking comes into mind. I think we have a slide, I think it's slide number 1.
Let's look at graphic number 1, and you can talk to that slide if we look at graphic number 1 right now. And there it is.
This whole thing about technology is scary to people because it is change, but there's been major change and major revolutions over the time. Look over the last 200 years. The Industrial Revolution took us out of the agricultural-based economy, and everything changed at that point. How value was created and what we measured. But that changed with the Service Revolution, where many manufacturing companies figured out that you could make as much money or more money with lower capital and less risk by servicing that which you sold. So there were a number of companies that figured out you could make more money servicing jet engines than building them. But then something changed. Everything changed with what's referred to as the software revolution. And all of a sudden you start to watch where was value created and who was on the cover of all of the business magazines, and it was the software guys. Because what they figured out was that value was in things that were soft and intellectual versus hard and physical. The network revolution is just yet one more revolution that we need to become accustomed to. And what's happening today is there's new technologies helping people connect in that network.
All right, let's look at graphic number 2 and tell us how it takes us to these new products and services.
Well, one of the ways that we've looked at it is that there's 4 kinds of businesses and what they provide for their customers. So on the bottom left, there's assets and the physical goods, people and companies that make things, buy one, sell one. In the bottom right, you have companies that are focused on people and providing services, charging per hour in many cases. But you move to the top left and you kind of cross the digital divide. You're now in a technology-oriented versus a physical business. And what's happening is you're creating something, a piece of intellectual property, that once created has zero marginal cost to sell the next product. And those businesses scale dramatically more. You move into the network and they've actually created a platform that other people will scale for you.
Okay, good. Now, we'll stop right there on the graphics, but Monty, seems to me like you've seen some of these things in your lifetime. Give us your impression of where you are here.
I have seen these things, and I'll just add on to what the other panelists were saying, and with a little bit of an added twist to it. So if you think about the physical world, as you were referring to it, versus the software world, as was just explained. The physical world, by its very nature, is limiting, and software is a catalyst. You can't build enough roads and infrastructure in India to educate all of the people that live in the rural backlands of India. The same thing with a place like China. So you can't build roads enough, you can't build schools fast enough to educate all those people. But what you can do is give all those people a cell phone and build towers, and they can learn from their cell phones, and they can learn from their personal devices or from their computers that don't require physical tethering in the physical world versus software world. So you have to think of software as a catalyst for to reach the places and do the things that the physical world can't do. The other thing that I would throw into this is the concept of pace of change and rapidity. So a long time ago, 50, 60, 70 years ago, or however many years ago it was, people started playing around and building this thing called a mainframe. So they built a mainframe, and it was 20 years later. And the mainframe, by the way, reflected how people worked and thought. There's a hierarchy. The top floor was where all the executives were and the big shots, and the bottom floor was where the new people were. And that's how mainframes worked, and that's how technology, the physical hardware, allowed it to work. When mini computers came along, and every information, by the way, was hierarchical, and so was organizational structure. When mini computers came along, it created the opportunity via networking and that physical device and software for departmental computing to occur. They didn't have to go to the mainframe gods to get information anymore. And information not only was powerful, it dictated how the organizations ran. So now departments can make decisions. That was 20 years later. 10 years later, the personal computer comes along, and now people have the ability to work and make decisions on their own. It was a few years after that that the personal computer turned into a mobile device. Cell phones came along that you could lug around, big boxes that you had to make phone calls with. And then when you combined, just a few years after that, much longer than the 20-year cycle before, from mainframe to mini computer, combined the combination of a cell phone and a laptop computer, if you will, then you could do anything from anywhere. So organizations changed again. Now people are working from home. They're doing things in ways that weren't happening before. And so the rapidity and the life cycle of technology is much more rapid than it used to be.
Correct. And so to that point, what Monty's describing is that in the control of information has been democratized. Everybody now has information versus it being controlled. And when that occurs, and the technology that allowed that to happen, it allows now new business models to be created that can utilize that technology. Because in the end, everybody's trying to understand what it is they want to achieve, and there are now new technologies allowing people to do that, where before it was not possible.
Well, I hear all that, and I love all that, but Barry, I'm sorry, there are a lot of people who are so, let's just say, invested in, whether it's sunk cost or whatever, what they're doing. You can't expect every company in this country, much less the world, to embrace this, can you? I mean, is that possible?
So I think every business has to think of themselves as a portfolio or have capabilities. Just like you think about capabilities of people, you think about your business as a portfolio of assets, if you might think of it, like stocks, bonds, cash, and alternatives. You think the same thing. What I want to do is have a portfolio. Some of my assets, physical assets, are still valuable having. Some of the services I offer are still valuable having. But to really compete today, you have to basically do what everybody just said on the panel. You have to say, gee, what intellectual property have I created that I can offer to some customer that tells them what's the information they need? Distance learning, right? That I can offer them in any industry. Doesn't matter if it's banking, insurance, finance, you name it. And then lastly, from a network perspective, how might I connect my customers so they are participants in my business, helping me think about a new idea, a new way of doing things, a new way of self-serving. So I think everybody can participate. This is not exclusive. This is an all-inclusive membership opportunity.
Well, it's not something, as Monty said, that's new. I mean, we've been through this, we're going through this process. This is just one more. Let's look at graphic number 5, Bill, if you can see this. And graphic number 5 has to do with these networks are proliferating due to a couple of factors.
Right.
Obviously, we've talked about the technologies. Monty did a good job of talking about some of those, but you can pick up on that and also talk to us about cultural shifts which are helping to make this happen.
That's right. So if you step back for a minute and think about all businesses are in business to satisfy their customers' needs. The question is, what are the technologies available to do that? 10 years ago, a new technology to do that was customer relationship management, CRM. So on the left here, we're really just talking that there are, once again, more technologies, new technologies that are coming faster and faster, allowing us to use them to connect with our customers. But what's important here, as depicted in the slide, is on top of that there is a cultural shift. One of it includes the democratization of information, as I described, and the self-actualization of people who want to be able to do things that they couldn't do before. And so what we have is an economy where people are actually willing to share. They're willing to share more information with each other than they are necessarily with the government. And when you watch what's going on, there's collaboration, it's being consumed. People love to do that collaboration. If I can't collaborate, then I'm not interested. Peer-to-peer exchanges, crowdsourcing, where people have begun to understand that the crowd actually knows more than the expert. It goes back to how we were talking about information being controlled in the mainframe, and if you wanted to get it, you had to go ask for it. There's a lot of work today that says that the crowd knows more than the expert.
And if I can just add on to that, Dennis, just to use a real life example, everybody knows that media in general and publishing industry in particular has been hit pretty hard by the changes that have occurred in the way people consume information in today's society. Well, I grew up buying the Sunday paper, and if it wasn't delivered or snowing and the paper boy didn't throw it at the door, I went and bought one. Well, to my kids, that's Jurassic Park in concept, because the way they think about things, why would you wait for somebody to deliver what's going on in the world to you? Why would you wait? Why would you actually leave your home to go do it? And why would you wait for a single source? Why would you get it from a single source? So to them, if they can't get the information instantly, there's an issue. And if they can't get the information from everyone else in the world that they asked for, from anybody, there's an issue. The way that when they were in college, the way that they chose their classes was to go to a website that ranked professors. And we're here now in this world where education is really important. And so they ranked their professors. And it was crowdsourcing, is the way they did it. And so some people went out and did a study and said, this has to be, these are kids just, this can't be right. And so what they did was they took professors themselves and deans of colleges, and they went out and studied these professors and audited their classes, and they ranked them and compared to the students' ranking. They were exactly the same. Wow. So from the democratization of information means that I as a person don't have to wait on a single source, and I don't even trust a single source, the newspaper, to give me my information. I go to many.
I think I like what you're saying there. I'm not sure that I like that, but I want to look at slide number 6, because when we talk about what investors value these days, we're going to talk about what investors value, and it's right there. So Barry, if you want to look at that, if you can read that, why don't you tell us what that means, and then we'll see what that might mean to an individual as well as an investor.
Sure. So if we think about the fact that there really are 4 basic business models. Businesses that make something and sell something, number 1. Businesses that produce services and sell those services, accounting firms, law firms, things like that. Business number 3, technology firms, we all know those, software companies, big data firms. And number 4, people who create networks that we all use every single day, information networks, travel networks. What financial markets investors have realized is that consumers, based on what you just heard from Bill and Monty, consumers prefer number 4, which is network-based businesses. They want to be self-actualized. They want to be in control. So investors rank them with a much higher multiple of value on their revenues, 8 times revenues or more. And for people who make things, they rank them much lower, or 1 times revenues. Said differently, all of us prefer being part of a peer-based network. So much so that investors say, we're going to give them a lot more value if you do what customers want.
So people who invest the big money, hedge funds, pension funds, mutual funds, all investors look at this, and that individual watching, when they decide what they're going to buy, they may look at that too, right?
Well, in fact, all those funds represent individuals.
Of course.
So those individuals, which is all of us, there is nobody else but us, have made decisions with our pocketbooks, both as customers, as employees, as investors, have all said, we really prefer companies that give us, I hate to say this, the old expression, teach us how to fish versus fish for ourselves. And we prefer to fish for ourselves than have someone fish for us.
That's a good thing from an investor side. But Monty, look, there's one of the things that we talk about in this country today is jobs or lack of them or not having it. I mean, this stuff may be great for an investment, but what is this doing to jobs? And we don't have to have as many people anymore, do we, or not?
That's a very good question. We do, but we have to do different things. The irony associated with what Barry just said is, first of all, he's correct, in my opinion. He's absolutely correct. The irony is, there are things that you actually go to the internet for instance, to buy, right? Those companies that allow you to do what he just articulated are ranked higher than the actual product that you receive from going to the internet itself. And what you really want in the end of it is a product. You don't just want information, you want to be able to do something with the information. Buy something, accelerate something, do something else. We do have to change what we think about, how we think about jobs. The idea that there's going to be, the middle class is going to be sustained by and even recreated by, or reestablished, I'll say, by what established it the first time is not going to happen. You're not going to have Ford creating all the jobs. You're not going to have industrial companies creating all the jobs. And if we're not careful, we're going to have an economy of service employees and information providers, and very few people in the middle that manufacture something. So we've got to think about what the internet does to the way we teach people, how we teach people, what we teach them to manufacture, and even the concepts around education itself, around where people fit in a class or a category, and how we teach them. It has to change.
Yeah, exactly. Now, Bill, you guys have spent the last couple of days out at what is called Deloitte University. Last I checked, that's not exactly probably an accredited university like UT Dallas, but it's a pretty doggone special place. I've been out there several times.
Yes.
Tell us what you're teaching effectively. I mean, I think you guys are in the category 2, the service providers, aren't you?
Yes, we are.
I mean, so you're talking to them about how to consult with these other companies. So what are you doing to get from here to there?
Yeah, well, what we're doing is we're utilizing our network of customers to provide them with the most value that is possible. And that's how we generate the value. So one way to generate value is just to charge for individual work that's done. But rather, we're able to pull our customers together and have them do peer-to-peer exchange. So Deloitte University was, first of all, created for our own internal training purposes to build our service providers into leaders. But what we've begun to recognize is that we can use that facility too to help our clients succeed. And so in the program that I'm currently involved in, which is the Next Generation CFO Academy, we're teaching Fortune 300 and larger next generation to-be CFOs how to be great CFOs. And we do it by bringing them together as a group of peers. It becomes very powerful because, once again, as we saw in one of the earlier slides, that people want to connect, and they want to connect with their peers, and they want to learn from each other, not just from a single source.
Barry, there's probably one person watching this program who does not know what a CFO stands for. Why don't you tell them?
Sure. Chief Financial Officer, the guy who is responsible for the money in the organization.
That's why they want to know that for sure. And the CFO job, as we all know, is much different from what it used to be, without a doubt. And it's going to be much different in the future. And so, how many years ago was it when you were CIO at American Airlines?
I was Chief Information Officer at American Airlines 3 years or so ago.
Just 3 years ago?
3 years
Anything changed in the last 3 years?
everything's changed in the last
last 3 years.
I mean, I used to talk to people, and standard interview question used to be, well, where do you see yourself in 5 years? Where do you see technology in 5 years? And the answer better be, if you're smart today, who knows? I mean, that rate of change. So it took MySpace, for instance. Facebook is what we started off talking about. It took MySpace, which is real beginning of all that, years and years and years to develop and catch on. It took Facebook a very short period of time, very short number of years to catch on. It took Twitter about 10 minutes during a presidential election in 2008. And so how you think about what the world is and how you talk about jobs, how people look at the jobs that they take and what how much time they spend at a specific company or doing a specific thing changes dramatically. So all of those things play into how we think about ourselves and how we think about what we're doing relative to the concepts of democratization of information and technologies we talked about earlier.
Why do I get concerned, Barry, about American kids? Because we're ranked somewhere. We just did a program recently on Common Core, which is really K-12 education stuff. Why do I get concerned that we're ranked 20th to 25th in the world in these things, and we're competing with young people all over the world for thinking? And how do we educate people and get them involved in this? Because we're already behind the curve, aren't we, or not?
Sure. So I think if we look back at what Monty said, we have a real chance in America to think, how could we educate our people in a new way, right? Not just force all of them into school systems, right? Traditional school systems, and not all at a physical location, right? There are some great institutions here that are physical, great brands in America, right? All the Ivy League schools is an example. But the truth of the matter is, even the Ivy League schools are beginning to offer virtualized education, which means we can basically filter down the very best education to our population. But here's an important statistic I just saw. We currently are educating, I think it's 500,000 a year, international students here in America, but only letting a fraction of those stay as employees in America. So you look at the fact that we're exporting one of our greatest assets, education, but we're not importing some of the greatest educated people into America.
Well, you put your finger on something that's very near and dear to me. My students last night and tomorrow night, more than half of them are foreign students. Now the good news is many of them say they're going to stay here, but often some of them can't stay here.
Correct.
Even if they wanted to.
What the statistics say.
And so that's a real problem. These are smart kids, and we need them to stay here. Okay, Bill, let's look at this last graphic, which is graphic number 7, and it sort of talks about the 4 steps to progress. Lead us through these, if you will.
So what we've determined so far, and what our research showed with the multiplier effect of 1, 2, 4, 8, is that there's 4 different business models, and value gets created more towards the network, right? So the question is, what do all of the companies that aren't in that business, how do they get there? So we have a 4-step model to get them. The first one is to understand, who are you and what is the business model you currently have? What do you value? Because it's not always clear, because everyone says, well, I do a little bit of this, I do a little bit of that, but where are your roots? And I can tell you as a financial guy, if I look at your balance sheet and P&L, I can tell you exactly who you are. After you orient yourself, then you need to kind of assess, and that is to take a look at all of the assets that you really have. A lot of the assets that a company has are not on their balance sheet. Assets like the employee workforce, like connectivity to the customer, right? So understanding what assets you really have will then allow you in step 3 to begin to reallocate your capital differently. One of the principal jobs of a chief financial officer is the allocation of capital. We're going to spend X amount of money this year. Where are we going to spend it? Are we going to spend it on our assets that are on our books that the markets have told us, based on the multiplier effect, don't have as much value? Yet we have customers and we haven't focused enough on them using today's technologies. Can we reallocate our capital? And then ultimately, how would you measure that? Because you can't measure something that you haven't valued, and you can't improve something that you don't understand how to measure it. And so if you go back to the Industrial Revolution, to the Services Revolution, to the Information Revolution, not only did business life change, but where value and how value was created, but so did all of the metrics. The way that you see whether a company is doing well or not. So here in this latest revolution, which we've really just begun, the question is, what are the right kind of metrics? Move to some of the social media companies. What are they measuring to show success? Traffic, right? Not necessarily even revenue. but how much time are people spending on the network?
Right.
Because they know that translates ultimately into profits.
Interesting. Now, Monty, just we have a couple minutes left. You're actually going to make a speech for us tomorrow at UTD, and you're going to be the Max Hopper speaker. Tell us very quickly about Max Hopper and what impact he might have had on all this stuff back in the past.
Max Hopper's had more of an impact on technological society in general than most people know. He was a great man. He passed away, unfortunately, not too long ago. But Max was a thought leader. The reason why storage exists the way that it does today is because there were a handful of people like Max Hopper that went to the big storage companies and went to the big storage providers like IBM and said, here's what we need. The reason why networking can scale the way that it is because Max Hopper created distributed networking at American Airlines the way that he did. And those things are still needed, and people like Max have to emerge today. We talked about the explosion in technology. There's going to be 6 or 7 times the networking needed today in 3 years just to handle all the video traffic that comes from all the social media and networking that's going on. And there have to be people like Max Hopper from this country that create this, hopefully from this country, that create this kind of thought leadership and product development.
Good, I appreciate that. Are you guys the new Max Hoppers here?
I don't want to be that optimistic.
Let somebody say that to you about you later on. But you guys didn't invent all of this just yourself. Give us just about 15 seconds each of how you got to this and where you're going right now.
Barry and I have been working on this topic for literally 19 years. If you read some of the work that we've published 19 years ago, you would say, wow, that's very similar to the message that you have today. The big change that's occurred over 19 years is technology has continued to advance at that faster pace and proven some of our earlier messages.
Last 10 seconds, Barry.
Sure. You know, I think this is an amazing time for us all. We have a chance for the first time to not just think about distributed information, but to basically have relationships among us all. And the most important thing is that will become, in this society, the most important thing to all of us.
Thank all of you for joining us. Thank you, Barry. Thank you, all of you. You know, you can check McQuestionTV.com and know that our hope is that you'll see your job, your employer, your investments, and your world in a different light. So thanks for joining us as we've talked about things that matter with people who care. Keep your seats, guys.
A DVD of this program is available for $20 plus $5 postage and handling, and in Texas, applicable tax. For more information, call 214-750-5157 or email nikkien@nikkimcquestion.com. Visit our website at www.mcquestiontv.com. You can also follow us on Twitter at www.twitter.com/McQuestionTV or download McQuestion TV video podcasts on iTunes. Production of McQuestion is made possible in part by individual viewers, supporters of the Foundation for Responsible Television, CF Accountants and Consultants, adding value to clients throughout the region, the Hatton W. Sumner's Foundation for the Study and Teaching of the Science of Self-Government, the University of Texas at Dallas, creating the future, Sundown Ranch, one sundown at a time.